Welcome to the College Football Bros. I'm Michael Newman.
I'm Ryan Newman.
And I'm Trey Newman.
All right, in this episode, we're going to go over who we think should win the Heisman and then who we think ultimately will win it. Let us know in the comments who would get your vote, maybe your top three, if you've thought that through. And keep in mind, we're recording this before the playoff games, which I think is fine because those games, of course, don't count in terms of the Heisman voting. Those votes are already in, so we have no idea what happened. But let's get to the finalists for the award. So the four finalists are Mac Jones from Alabama, Trevor Lawrence from Clemson, DeVonta Smith, of course, the receiver for Alabama, and Kyle Trask at Florida. But my question for you guys is outside of these four players, who do you think had the best argument to maybe be that fifth guy at the ceremony, or I guess virtually at the ceremony? That's a hard word.
No, it's there's definitely some people that have some gripes as far as, hey, at least just being invited to the ceremony. And I think the one guy that I'm going to go with is a teammate of two of the guys that already made it. I'm going to go with Najee Harris, the running back from Alabama. I think he averaged well over 100 rushing yards per game. He had 27 total touchdowns, even finished off with the conference title game against Florida with 3 receiving touchdowns. So he did it in both on the ground and through the air. And in the biggest games this year, he went off. He had like 178 rushing yards, 67 receiving yards, 5 total touchdowns against Florida, 152 yards and a touchdown against Georgia. And then against Ole Miss in that close game, they had to ride him just because it was a neck and neck type of ball game. So when they had a somewhat of a challenge, I mean, he came up and he was just awesome. And he was as good as they absolutely needed him to be. So had they not been this good as far as like blowing teams out, he probably could have had more stats if the games were closer. They just didn't necessarily need as much from him. So I would say Najee.
Okay, that's a reasonable pick. And I think he did. They released the 6 through 10 or 5 through 10 in the voting. And I want to say he was 5th. So that makes some sense there. I'm going with the guy who was 6th, which was Breece Hall, running back for Iowa State. Iowa State has, of course, they had one of their best seasons of all time, and they've not had a very good offensive line. So the fact that he finished second in the nation in rushing yards with 1,436, had 21 total touchdowns, and did so on the same amount of yards per carry as Najee Harris, 5.9. I mean, that's pretty dang impressive given what he's working with in that offense. So
it's a good point.
He'd be the case I'd make.
Yeah,
absolutely. And since I'm wearing my Heisman shirt,
there you go.
I have the authority to make the
you're a voter.
pick here.
You're a Heisman voter.
Yeah, I should be. I've got the credentials with the shirt, but no, we've got. I'm going to go with a different guy. I'm going to go Zach Wilson, BYU, 33-3 touchdown to interception ratio. He added 10 more rushing touchdowns. He was 3rd in the nation with 11 yards per attempt. He was efficient, completing over 73% of his passes. He extended plays when they weren't there. He's the clear leader of that team, and he passes the quote unquote eye test in a big way.
If Dax Milne got a yard further against Coastal and was able to score that touchdown, BYU's undefeated. Maybe he's there.
Yep,
maybe. Yeah. And by the way, the other quarterback in that game against Coastal, Grayson McCall, I thought he should have been in the top 10 in voting. He wasn't. He had an amazing year for a freshman. And then Malik Willis for Liberty as well was another guy who I thought, hey, maybe should have been in the top 10. But
even a guy like I don't see that he deserved to be in the ceremony, but Spencer Rattler just had a huge turnaround as far as at least from the first couple games. To where he finished like, hey, a lot of, our stats are just blown up nowadays where, we got such, every year it's just like Joe Burrow's stats are getting repeated now by Kyle Trask and Mac Jones. Like it's just the offensive explosion, but he had good numbers too.
All right. Well, let's move on to the guys that are there, the 4 candidates. Of those 4, who do you think should win? What do you think, Trey? Who's your vote?
I got DeVonta Smith. The main reason is because when Jalen Waddle went down early in the year, DeVonta became the clear top target, and defenses still couldn't slow him down. He had 12 more receptions and over 300 more receiving yards than the second best guy in the country, Elijah Moore. He caught 17 touchdowns, over 15 yards per reception. You can go on and on. The other thing I liked is he started returning punts, averaged 25 yards per return, even housed one. He's just so electric.
Yeah, I mean, you can't go wrong with him. Like we were splitting hairs here. I think the three of us all. It was a very close decision. Let's just say, my vote would have gone to Kyle Trask for Florida. He just helped take that offense to really several levels up from where Felipe Franks had it. And I've got an image here just to kind of show the comparison to some other guys. So this is an image of at the time of the Heisman ceremony last year for Joe Burrow, what his stats were. And then I've scaled Kyle Trask and Mac Jones numbers to 13 games because they only played 11. So just to kind of give it a more apples to apples comparison. And if this were a blind resume, you don't necessarily look at that and just say, wow, Joe Burrow clearly had the best year, because you can look, we've put in kind of orange there who has the edge in certain stats, and Trask and Mac Jones have the edge in a few stats themselves. So I think they are both worthy of winning the Heisman. The reason I'm going with Trask is just because I think he doesn't have as great of a supporting cast as Mac Jones does. I mean, sure, he's got Pitts, he's got some great receivers, but Mac Jones has the best offensive line in the country in front of him. They give him just what feels
Sick
like
amount of time. Yeah,
just a ridiculous amount of time to sit back there. He's got maybe the best running game in the country with Najee Harris behind him. So if I'm having to split hairs between them, that's why I went with Trask. I felt like he carried Florida more so than Mac Jones did for Alabama.
Yeah, Michael and I see this the exact same way here. I think Trask just was able to he was the most important player, and I think his stats even come up to back up is that he should win the Heisman in my eyes. 43 touchdowns to 5 picks, 70% completion percentage, and he didn't have a running game. Like not one Florida running back went over 100 yards in a game this year. I mean, and he still couldn't be stopped through the air. Just goes to show you how lethal that passing game was. The teams knew it was coming. Yet they still couldn't stop it. And it was just the pinpoint accuracy that he had. He was just such a game competitor too. He seemed to come up in the biggest moments. He carried that team in the SEC title game against Bama. It just looked like they could, weren't going to be able to hang in there, but Trask just seemed to kind of will them. And he showed those stats, Michael, from the comparison of the three quarterbacks.
Yeah, let's look at that again. Yeah.
The interesting thing is you scaled it, but Trask, those are all against SEC teams, right? They didn't have any non-conference games to do that. So he's doing that all against SEC level defenses. And Joe Burrow's was a little different. I mean, I still went off against SEC teams, but it just kind of gives it a little bit more of an impressive thing that he did it against, in the best conference. So Trask gets my vote, just like Mike.
And I think it would be a lazy argument just to say, oh, well, Mac Jones and Bama beat Trask. Well, no, I mean, you said, if you stick Trask on Bama or just that shouldn't be. It's supposed to go to the best player, not like a guy on the best team. So even though it's kind of turned into that a lot.
Yeah, and just a little defense of Joe Burrow's numbers from last year. These are, like I said, at the time of the Heisman ceremony. So Joe Burrow went on to go to the playoff against OU and Clemson and put up like ridiculous numbers.
Yes.
So he cemented that I would just add, put Joe Burrow's 2019 ahead of any players this year.
Yes, fair enough. For
just
sure.
interesting to see that how close the stats were. So let's move on to who do you think will win the Heisman Trophy now?
I'm still got to go with DeVonta Smith, and that's primarily just because of the current odds. If I didn't know the odds, I would guess the media might pick a quarterback and take Mac Jones since they beat Florida. Like we've talked about, I might stick Trask ahead of Jones, but I mean, Jones would be a clear deserving winner. There's no slight on him. But I just, it's going to be close where there's some drama going into this vote, especially with the Alabama teammates, maybe kind of knocking off each other's votes.
3 of them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, and then another SEC player in Kyle Trask. So there's going to be some drama going into the ceremony.
Yeah, that's the thing. This is the first time in what feels like a long time, and that there is drama at the ceremony. Usually, you go into the Heisman ceremony, you already know who's going to win. Like there's some massive favorite, and that's not the case this year. You look at the odds. DeVonta Smith is the favorite, -180. So I agree. I would predict that he wins. That's my prediction. But Mac Jones plus 220, it's not far behind. Trevor Lawrence has got a chance too, plus 400, which equates to 4-1. I would be shocked if Trask won, but either of the other three guys, it could happen.
I since Michael and I both picked Trask to who, as far as who we would vote for, I'm a little surprised by those odds for him. I don't feel like he's deserved getting enough credit, but so be it. I agree. I think DeVonta Smith will likely win it. He has just been, he's been incredible, no doubt about it. But I've, as I mentioned before, though, he's kind of the home run hitter on that team. The guy that gets the most publicity. He hits those long balls and people notice that, right? So he's catching those 70-yard bombs and just kind of the electric player. And when I think with Waddle going down, like Trey kind of mentioned, he got the lion's share of the attention and he's still performing, but he also got the lion's share of the national publicity. Like he is the dude. So I think that helps just getting his image out there to voters, and that's who they see. And he's the obvious choice as far as the pass catcher. So I do think he'll end up winning.
Yeah, I saw that he was the highest graded player, wide receiver by PFF ever, since they've been covering college football. But also Mac Jones was the highest graded quarterback. So it's insane.
And they had their offensive line was the highest graded offensive line ever, and their running back. No,
yeah, for sure. So, there you have it.
We joked, but Mac Jones really shouldn't have thrown it to DeVonta Smith at all the last couple of years.
I know. If he wanted to win the Heisman, what was he doing? Giving Smith all those targets. I would have given him 0 targets. John Mechie would have been getting everything.
Yeah.
Oh man, big mistake. Anyway, thanks for watching this episode. That the virtual Heisman ceremony is going to take place Tuesday, January 5th. So enjoy watching that. Be sure to subscribe to our channel for our thoughts on the playoff. Of course, this is coming out after the semifinals, but we'll of course have our CFP championship preview coming in the next week. So thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.
You've been watching the College Football Bros. Be sure to subscribe here on YouTube and in your podcast app for college football content all year round. For bonus episodes and access to our Discord chat, join our Patreon at patreon.com/collegefootballbros. Thanks for watching.